Reginald here. I think it's about time we talk about the meta for Arbites. And I'd like to actually explain, so we're going to do this a little bit less like heavily edited and a little bit more talky, so I can explain to you why I'm talking about what I'm talking about. Well, let's get into it. Give me a two-handed chain axe already. I have a lot of different builds here that I can show you, and there's really a lot of different options in this class because everything is pretty much good. It's actually fairly hard to build this class wrong, but there are ways that you can do that. I'd like to show you how to build this class correctly without making too many unnecessary mistakes. There are a lot of really good options here. It's totally fine to play around with stuff since there are so many good options, and you should do so. But what I want to show you is the meta and why it's the meta, and sort of give you a methodology for building this class that will help you understand what the key proper nodes are for building your builds around. I have two builds here, and I've been testing them in Havoc games and Auric games, and I more or less know what works at this point. And I've been at it for a while, and not only have I been at it, but I'm also talking to a lot of other top-level players who have helped me either make these builds better or informed early decisions on these builds or something like that. So you're reasonably safe with these. I'm not saying you can't make them better and improve them or tweak them, but I'm just saying like this will land you in a good spot, right? So if you want to know what to play, this is basically right. Now, I want to detail the methodology by which I'm building these and highlight the key nodes. I'm going to show you this build, but we're going to actually talk through why it's this way. So this is going to be a dog-focused build, and I'm just going to scroll through it real quick so you can see, and you can select what you like out of this. All right, now, we're going to go back up, and I'm going to talk through the key nodes after I show you the second build. The second build is this one, and it is also excellent, and it looks like this. However, I really want to punch through sort of some of the guesswork here and give you an idea of why we're doing what we're doing. So let's actually start with this build, since it's a little bit more clear to see. The critical nodes on this build are actually these four top nodes, and they should be in almost every single one of your builds. And let me explain why. This is an attack speed buff that's going to basically be up all the time. It is very rare for you to not be hitting 3 or more enemies in melee in this game, especially in high-level content. If you aren't, usually it's because you're fighting a blob of crushers. This is a close kill toughness replenishment, and it works on melee and ranged attacks at close distances. This gives you toughness replenishment for staggering anything. This also works on range or on melee. This makes it, or even on ability use. This makes it incredibly good for keeping yourself alive. And finally, this one, Walk It Off, gives you toughness replenishment just for doing any stamina actions, such as sprinting or doing a shove. It can be used to trigger stamina replenishment when hiding behind a wall and waiting to recover. And I have seen people face tank gunners just by using this with good damage reduction on Havoc 40, which is absurd. This is not a critical node at all. This is just something I took for this to improve movement speed and melee damage and general damage. It's fine. You don't need it. We're always going to grab this toughness damage reduction node to make us a little tankier as we come down into our grenades. Building a dog build, you'll probably want to grab Razor Jaw Judgments because it's nuts. You can grab shields plates if you are running a shield. Otherwise, it's really not worth it. And honestly, you don't need it. This is optional too. The thing about Arbites tree that's great is all of the grenades are technically viable. There's no particular best one. They're just flavored. This is basically Mobile Smite. This is an insane stagger AoE with huge damage that can save you from anything. And this is really good if you're running dog, and you should obviously always take it if you are. Then we're going to grab our required node of Arbitrator Armor. I want to talk about Ammo Belt. This is not required. If you need a point to go somewhere, you can drop this. But I think since Arbitrator's guns are so strong, it makes sense to take this in those builds. Let's talk about Concussive. Concussive is absolutely required. You should always take this. Why? Melee weak spot hits makes the enemy count as staggered. This means that when you go to trigger Force of Will on something like a monstrosity, you can. You are staggering the enemy, the Plague Ogren, as long as it counts as staggered in this case. So it's really, really good. And this just gives you a ton of sustain. It also applies to other effects like Skull Crusher and so on if you're running something like this, allowing you to proc Skull Crusher on an enemy that's not technically staggered and deal that damage. We're going to grab Suppression Protocols because it's the better of the two options here. It gives you 20% damage reduction for just hitting 3 enemies, whereas this applies only to the enemy that you hit, so it's not as universal, and it's a little bit more niche. We're going to grab Baking Descent because it gives us the 10% damage versus Staggered, which is good. The other auras are fine, but this is the better one. Obviously, Lone Wolf is amazing if you're not running a dog, and you can't if you're taking Lone Wolf, so there you go. I think this is the better buff for your dog if you want it over this, because this causes Fox Bursts to blow up on your head. And then just run whatever ability you want. This is not the key part of your build. This is the flavor of your build and the abilities you're going to have. The key part of your build is this. I'm going to tell you right now, these abilities are amazing. All of them. And you can take any of them with any of the builds that you're seeing here. It doesn't matter. If you want to run Castigator Stance, go right ahead. If you want to run Nuncio Aquila, go right ahead. If you want to run Break the Line, that's fine too. They're all good. They're all usable. And they all only require 2 nodes to get value out of. Okay? I experimented with all of them, and they all have their upsides and their downsides, but they're all just super strong, so it doesn't really matter. What I want to highlight here is that in the builds that I'm giving you today, there are 2 additional nodes. You do not have to use these. You can put them in other places if you want. You will be fine. The only node that I think is usually worth taking on Nuncio is Inspiring Recitation, which gives you toughness damage reduction and revive speed and attack speed for allies. That's a big deal. Fear of Justice is okay, and you could take it if you like it, but you don't have to have it, okay? For Break the Line, I think that specifically Targeted Brutality is actually worth it because it gives you a ability cooldown unless you use this big stagger from this even more. I actually don't think Engage is really required to make this ability good, though that surprised me, to be honest. All of these abilities are good. These 2 abilities give you either safety or control-based safety, whereas Castigators just makes you immune and allows you to get crazy res-based clutches. So it's up to you on what you want in your team. In Orcs, this definitely doesn't matter, but in Havocs, I would probably favor either of these 2 if you're newer to the game, especially Nuncio because it's easier, but if you're playing at a higher level, you can probably take Castigators just fine. Okay, now here is the big deal, and I want to take a moment here just to say this is really where I think I didn't understand Arbites early on. Let me bring up this sheet for you in Google Sheets that I made. This is Talent Math, and it shows different builds, and it allows me to show different class data. One of the big differences between Arbites and other classes is that a ton of the damage available to the class is in blue nodes scattered above all of the keystones, okay? They're all highly accessible, and they're all above the keystones. If you look at Zealotry, most of the damage you can get on the class is actually locked away in the keystone itself. Not all of it. There are some damage nodes like Sustained Assault and Duelist that sit around outside of it, but FOTF is your major damage pump, and Martyrdom or Blazing Piety or Inexorable Judgment are all ways to get damage into your class that otherwise doesn't exist. With the Arbites class, there is a difference. It's all here. And it's this chunk of stuff that you want. So let me go through it real quick for you. Arbites Revelatum is 15% damage for 5 seconds on successful dodge. That's 15% damage like most of the time you're playing the game. Justified Measures is also, 15% on successful attack. Oh, you do attacks all the time, so you're just going to stack this up all the time. Hold the Line is a really good defensive buff. So that's great to have on hand, and I recommend taking it, obviously. The next 2 nodes we care about are the Emperor's Fist. That's free melee damage to the first target, and Stagger. You can pass on this if you really need the points, but it is a strong ability. And Weight of the Lex, which also gives us 15% damage just for doing a heavy attack, which is all the time. The thing about damage is it's damage to all sources. So if you were to dodge, you were to do some attacks for a while, and you were to do this heavy attack, this will actually buff your gun for the same amount of damage. That's what, 34? That's 45% damage from those 3 nodes to your gun. Okay, that's why this class is so silly at times, because the buffs go to everything and they're easy to get and you can take them all. There's a few other nodes worth getting. Target Priority, 50% damage to enemies above 75% health. Well, if you have a weapon that can one-shot, like, I don't know, the Duckbill shotgun, the Mark III, and you shoot it in the face, and it will almost certainly die because of the extra 15% damage, where it might not otherwise have. So if you trigger these 3 nodes, and then you have this node available, and you're firing at an enemy with your shotgun for the first time that is, unwounded, you're going to get 60% damage to your shotgun. That's nuts. And it's free, basically, because it's just from doing stuff you do all game, okay? And that's why this class is able to pump out so much more damage than I anticipated. My early builds only had about 40% damage, and because I was anticipating most of the damage coming out of this keystone, and I was just wrong. So there are additional nodes you need to know about that are worth picking up if you have points and you want to, move points around. Monstrosity Hunter is really good and is worth potentially dropping Emperor's Fist for. It's up to you. You can make the decision on your own. The best keystone is Forceful. The most important ability is Target Acquired. It gives you an attack speed buff, which is enormous, as well as plus 50 cleave, which is just tremendous for cutting through hordes of enemies. Adamant Will is also really solid because it does give you that stun immunity, which can be huge when you're trying to clutch. And Will of the Lex is just a great buff to your survivability. There's one other ability I need to talk to you about, which I will, which is True Grit, but we're going to cut that in a second. This node, Drive Them Back, is non-optional. Please do not skip this node. I'll try to show you what this node looks like. Let's just like, I don't know, like do one of these real quick. Hang on. Can I 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here is a heavy attack. I hit one guy. I'm going to do a shove. That is how much of a difference that makes. I'm going from just... Okay, I hope that demonstration helps you understand why this push attack thing is so crazy. You do a push, and you can suddenly cleave multiple really big targets. Maybe I can even demonstrate better with one additional thing. So we've got a Ogren Gunner, right? So this is the light attack without the shove. So just for clarity, in case you couldn't see, I was hitting the other gunner with the push, and it was causing him to flinch. That is absolutely super strong. That is a lot of extra cleave, and that it gives you a lot of value on some weapons that have low cleave, making them very effective into groups of enemies where they might otherwise struggle a bit more. It's a huge boost, but it also applies to ranged. Without it. 1, 2, 3. That's 2. Okay, perfect. Should be easy to demonstrate. 2, 3. There you go. So the difference not only applies to your melee attack, but also to your ranged attack. I went from killing 2 gunners to 3 gunners, which is... I mean, look, let me just put it this way. How many times have you seen this pile out of a fucking door? You know what I mean? Like, all this just, like, pours out of the door. There you go. Let's just talk. So let's talk a little bit more about the builds, okay? Let's talk about weapons briefly. I want to explain weaponry. I recently played a couple of solo games where I was able to demonstrate why this shotgun is so good. And... it's still good in a Havoc. Obviously, it doesn't quite hit the breakpoints as hard, but it is insane. I want to just show you on the range what this thing is doing and why it's kind of ludicrous and probably needs to be tuned down. But until it is, this is the meta weapon to use. The only thing that you should use other than this, if you want to play meta, is a bolt gun as a boss killer. Besides that, just push. That was 3 shots. I could probably line that up even better. And people will often say, oh, well, you know, what about long ranges, right? Like, what about ranges? We have a range problem in this game. Well, okay, so how far away is that? We're at 15 meters. I fired, what, 4 times? It's not a problem. Most of the game is spent within 15 meters. It is rare for you to be this far away from something, and if you are, all you do is this. same head height, click button, everything will die. Right? Good. Glad we're on the same page. Just to reiterate, that's 20 meters. So 24 meters. Even still, what was that, 4 or 5 shots? This thing has a ton of ammo base. You are literally fine. All right, let's talk about melee weapons. This is possibly his best melee weapon on the class. It has tremendous firepower in terms of damage. Its Horde Clear combo gets that heavy attack by default, but it's perfectly fine for other things. With Forceful, you just knock everything over pretty much. Tons of cleave, no problem. Into Crushers, it also goes crazy. Yeah, pretty wild, right? It's not the most powerful into Crushers, but it is excellent. The Stun Field effect is crazy as well. Very, very good. Okay, so this weapon, very good, very strong, very fast, has great mobility. Will help you clutch through dodges. Also good options is the Indignatus Crusher. This weapon has a ton of value. The powered attack isn't bad, but the most important skill to learn is this. The push attack. The push attack on headshot, with followed up by light attack, is super fast into most targets. Does plenty of damage. Keep in mind, as you stagger things, you're going to be getting Skull Crusher stacks.
But what if he does not?
There you go. The weapon's crazy, as long as you use that basic attack pattern for most single target attacks. If you ever run into a target that you can't deal with, you just power it up and give them the old whackaroo. The other thing that's nice about this weapon is, if you're running into threats that you can't deal with, just give them the double heavies. Why 2 heavies? The second heavy, the horizontal heavy, has a really good stagger profile. Let me show you. Even in Havoc, the second heavy fully staggers enemies out of their overhead and can literally floor crushers. So if you need safety, that's the way to get it. You can also just whiff on purpose to get that out of it. Crazy, right? There you go. Okay, last weapons I think is really, really worthwhile on the class. One of my personal favorites is just the shield. I believe the correct way to build it now, as has been demonstrated, is power output at 60%. It's got the incredible, like, the AoE effect on this thing is really strong, really useful. And then it's not bad into most targets. With Forceful on the table, and all that 100% damage buff you can get from various things, like this is not peak damage, this is just like range damage. There's so many ways to get damage in this thing. It's very good. And it comes with ranged safety, tons of buffs, and also because you can just spend stamina whenever you want doing this, it's great. It's a really powerful ability, really powerful weapon, really fun to use in my opinion, so there's really no reason to use what you want. Everything's fine, everything works. Let's talk about True Grit. There's one other thing we have to talk about here. We haven't talked about True Grit yet, and we really need to, so hang on. So I'm going to spawn a Crusher. I'm going to dodge everything other than overheads. This is Damnation difficulty, Orc, actually. You lose your toughness. I took 50 damage. Dude, dodge that on instinct. I have taken 3 overheads. I have taken 4 overheads. Let's actually just take off True Grit. All right, same build, no True Grit. So your margin of error with True Grit on at any difficulty above, I guess, what, probably Heresy, it goes from 1 mistake to 4 mistakes. And just to reiterate that, I played 2 games the other day while building out these builds that I've been showing off. I played one with the dog and one without, and I forgot to put True Grit on one of my builds, and I lost the game at the very end because I caught an overhead by mistake that I could have easily survived if I had had True Grit, which is what you should be seeing on screen right now. And that is the difference between not having and having True Grit. The safety margin is crazy. Okay, one last thing to talk about in terms of what's good and what's not good. This Rebreather, really, really good in Havocs, completely irrelevant in Oryx. So if you have points to spare, which you totally can, on most builds, like if you're playing Toxgas, just dump this, take this, right? Dump this, take that. In fact, I'd probably take this over this most time, but hey, look, you've got options. There are lots of ways to spend your points. You can ditch these 2 nodes here if you're running Castigators and pick up like this and this, right? And even maybe the Rending if you feel like it. Like there's so many options. Another good one is Soul Guild Scan if you want. This rapid movement is pretty solid since it's a stamina restoration. These are all good nodes. They give you lots of opportunities to build better. But hopefully these builds and my explanation of why I'm picking what I'm picking and explaining what's good here has helped you understand how to get good value out of the different builds that are on the table. Right now, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I covered talents and weapons, but I didn't talk curios, so let's do that real quick. On the whole, I am typically running 2 toughness and 1 max health. I think the max health here actually gets you a breakpoint on taking an extra overhead, but I don't feel it's required. So if you want to run triple toughness, if you're doing a Havoc game, or if you want to run like a stamina, go right ahead. Just remember that wound curios are pretty much useless on every class other than Zealot, so there's no reason to take those. For sub-nodes on these, I'm usually taking toughness on at least 2, usually 3, combat ability regeneration, 2 damage resistance against gunners, and I usually like to take at least 1 stamina regeneration in this mix. So that's usually how I roll. You can even take 3 gunner resist, but you don't have to, and you can still have a ton of survivability on this class. So now, one last thing before I go. I did play an Auric game just for fun. I wasn't recording or anything, and I guess I'm sorry for that because it was like kind of a crazy clutch. But I saw that Reddit post about it. That person did reach out to me on one of my comments as well and just say hi. Thank you very much for the kind words. I really do appreciate it, actually. It was really nice of you. It was fun to see that pop up in my feed. A couple of people sent me a link to that because I don't have a Reddit account, so I wasn't able, or if I do, I haven't used it in so long, I don't even know if I could log into it. But in any case, I did really appreciate that. I appreciated the shout out. And I hope you had a fun game because it sounded like you did. I hope you continue to play and find some, get some experience. I know it wasn't in the recording, but I do remember what happened at the end. So I have some advice for you real quick, which is if there's a sniper and a mutie charging you, you can revive after the mutie hits the wall usually, but the sniper will shoot too fast. So you should kill the sniper quick with your ranged weapon, get the mutie to charge a wall, preferably away from your position. And then once he's missed, you can start the revive and usually get it off before he gets back to you, as long as he hits some object, because that staggers him for a long enough duration that even unassisted, you should be able to get it. And that would allow you to pick me up off the ledge. Besides that, I mean, like, I know you guys were kind of new, so that's totally fine that you guys had a difficult game. Or the fun of experiencing Auric the first time is like finding out how much more you can grow into the upper levels of the game and have a good opportunity to like experience what else there is to offer in the content. It wouldn't be fun if there wasn't a challenge, right? So I hope you find this guide useful, you find other guides that I put out useful, and I will be seeing you around. Warm regards.
Reginald.
I would like to take a moment to provide a special thank you to a Rando Dude and Joseph Davison for being Oathmaker level members, and to Zimisk3 and Fluff. Also a shout out to Vinny for continuing to support my channel whenever I do have time to stream. Hopefully that will pick up again soon. Guys, genuinely, I really appreciate it a lot. It honestly is just so encouraging to have you guys supporting me like that, and it means a lot to me personally. So thank you. I hope to continue to bring you high quality content. I continue to do my best. So take care, and I'll see you around. Thanks so much for visiting, and bye-bye.